and I look forward to sharing with you a little bit today about next year. We're going to prepare for next year. It's hard to believe that 2021 is coming to a close. And for so many people throughout the year, so many people felt as if they were standing either on the brink or on the verge. Now, what does that mean? Depending upon the foundation you stood upon this year, if you stood upon a foundation of self-empowerment, a foundation of self-worth, self-awareness that leads to self-acceptance, self-worth, self-esteem, self-love, self-confidence, self-respect, and self-realization, that's the foundation of self-empowerment. And as those who stood upon that foundation, they were standing on a verge, the verge of greater opportunities, the verge for greater success, the verge of new beginnings, going into the unknown with hope in their heart, with trust, with a sense of vision of who they are, and more importantly, who they are becoming. And that is an opportunity when the foundation was built upon a place of self-empowerment. Now, when those who didn't have that foundation, those who were standing on a foundation of the past, of the ego, in other words, functioning only out of what is familiar and being terrified of the unknown, not trusting their own sense of power, which is what self-empowerment is. But those who didn't trust that and didn't have that as a foundation to stand upon, those individuals felt all year long that they were standing on the brink of disaster, the brink of pain, of frustration, of hopelessness, the brink of mediocrity at best, and self-destruction at worst. And so the foundation is so important to understand. And what I mean about that is, unfortunately, even in our healthcare system, it's about treating disease and illness and symptoms, but not treating the foundation of what health is. And I remember reading online not too long ago, earlier this year, and I just thought this was brilliant. And it said that if your physician, if your doctor doesn't ask you about your sleep patterns, your diet and nutrition, and your exercise, which is the foundation of health, right? If they do not ask you about those things, then they're nothing more than a legal drug dealer. And when I read that, my jaw dropped open. It was one of those yeah, because the foundation of health and well-being needs to be there to rest upon, to stand upon, to have that sense of inner security. And so much of what the foundation of personal empowerment is all about is learning to trust yourself, learning to turn towards your own ability to discern, to evaluate, and to trust the decision-making process within yourself. Because slowly through time, and it started back in the 70s and 80s, where people started taking their power back from major institutions. Meaning that, in the past, in the 70s and 80s, people would go to a doctor, go to the hospital, and just follow along with whatever they said. They didn't question. Don't question authority, right? Don't question your doctor. They have your best interest at heart. And certainly some of them do, but they don't know your body. They don't know you and your physical health and well-being. So even though they might have your, quote, best interest at heart, you need to rely upon your own inner wisdom. And so that started to be decentralized. From people going to the hospital, sitting in the hospital for 2 or 3 weeks, they started decentralizing, letting people go back home sooner. Home health care became very popular in the 80s. And it was a step towards slowly taking power back, slowly allowing people to regain their sense of inner strength and power. And it's real important, as you understand how this works, that the foundation is that we have slowly evolving towards giving our power away to a greater authority. And as those greater authorities have failed to lead us where we need to go, it forces us to turn inward, to become our own author, to become our own authority, to write your play, to write your book of life, to decide, how am I going to support my sense of well-being? How am I going to support who I am and who I am becoming? And in so many ways, not just automatically, blindly giving your power away to any authority that comes along, that we've been so taught and conditioned to do from the time we're little as children, right? Just have faith in the religious leader. Just have faith. Just trust. Don't question. Never question. Just have faith. That's taking your power away. Because your true power comes from learning to discern, to evaluate, and then to come up with your decision, to decide what's right for you. And that is slowly the power and the journey towards empowerment, is to take your power back. Now, that doesn't mean it's either or. It doesn't mean, well, I'm never going to listen to authority. No, you listen and you evaluate and you think and you feel, and then you listen to your intuition. You listen to your soul's guidance. And then you make the decision based upon that, not just based upon what somebody said. And it's so interesting to me, as I like to, one of my teachers did this for many, many decades that I worked with, and he's encouraged us to kind of come up with our own theme of each year, the energies, the flows of each year. And I have labeled 2020 to 2029, this entire decade, as the Decade of Transcendence, where people are going to emerge, becoming more fully empowered, shedding the past, and changing into a whole different type of human being. An evolutionary process where we move from the human animal to what we are now, the human being, to becoming the fully empowered spiritual human being, is where we are moving towards, where we start to recognize who we truly are, the soul and spirit within us that has been so forgotten and for some lost, that is reawakening. And as this reawakens, it creates exponential change, monumental change, not just in your reality, but in the way you function and in the way you relate to yourself. So this decade, this umbrella for the last 9 years, for this 9 years, we're just now into the third year, right? Starting in 2022, the third year. The first year, 2020, was the year of truth and understanding. 2020. And think back upon that. And I labeled that before we got underway in that year. What came to the surface in those years? Fake news. Who can you trust? What is truth and what is fake news? What is a conspiracy theory? What is the honest truth of what's going on? And all the fake news and all who can you trust out there became the biggest issue. And how do I understand my truth compared to what I'm being told on the news of what is the truth? And so the year of 2020 and embarking on this decade of transcendence, we each had the opportunity to look and to search for greater truth within ourselves. Now, those who sought greater truth outside of themselves were like a hamster on a wheel, going around and around and around and around, never getting anywhere. Because the truth is never found outside of yourself. You need to look through the eyes of your soul. You need to discern and understand. So 2020, embarking on this new decade, with then Corona hitting in March of that year and becoming a worldwide pandemic that no one saw coming, forced people to think and feel and evaluate, forced people to slow down. And that was what 2020 was really about. In so many ways, it was what gave people the prequel to what was to come in 2021, which is this past year, which is the year I labeled the Year of Metamorphosis, the year of personal transformation. So we began this decade of transcendence, which means that you're going to emerge having quenched your thirst and your desire, not only to discover who you truly are, but to become more of who you truly are, to become the spiritual being that you've always been but may have forgotten, that you have always been but has lied dormant within the cocoon. And as 2021 was this year of metamorphosis, so many people, after 9 months of being back and forth with the unknown of the coronavirus, forced to go back into their into their self, into their solitude, slowing things down, disconnecting from the outside world, not having the opportunities for the ego to distract itself with keeping busy and going to dinners and going to friends and going to movies and going to events and keeping yourself constantly on the go. All of the world has forced itself to slow down, to pause, to push in the clutch, to shift gears. And that was necessary. Scary. Dealing with the unknown. When is this going to end? But it's not unlike a caterpillar who's been consuming its life, consuming and all concerned about what can I get, what can I take, what can I achieve, what can I accomplish, constantly on that hamster wheel of the ego, consuming everything around it, consuming all the leaves and consuming until one day it slows down and goes into a cocoon to self-reflect, but also to change. But not just change subtly, not just change your hair color or change your diet and your weight, but change on a transformational level. And out of that pause, to self-reflect, to look at what's working in your life. In so many relationships that have been, quote, going for many years and the people don't even know each other, they start to realize, who is this person I've been living with for the last 20 years? Or dealing with work that no longer is productive or fulfilling. And to realize, no, I can't just go back to doing what I've always done. I've changed. Something in me has shifted. I can't describe it, but it has happened during this course of 2021. There has been a major shift, or the opportunity for a major shift in your life. And now, as many of us have emerged from the cocoon, and some of those, depending on your timing, some emerged out of the cocoon in March and April of this year. Others, it was July and August, and others September, October, and still others will do it at the very tail end of this year as we move into the holiday season. It's not right or wrong. Everyone has its cadence. Everyone has its timing. And we're all unique and individual. It's not to say that those who did it earlier are better than. No, they're just different. And depending on their foundation, depending on their relationship with themselves, will depend upon how fast that accelerates. It's not right or wrong, because it's all an opportunity for all of us to embark upon what is coming up, which is 2022, the year of belonging and connection. And like the analogy, as you emerge from your cocoon as a butterfly, you're not a caterpillar with wings. You are a completely different creature. You are a completely different person within yourself. And I don't mean that in the form of your body, but in the way you feel, in the way you function, and the way you relate to other people, to yourself, and to the world at large. That's the transformation within yourself of metamorphosis. And so many of you have done that. Some of you have done it dramatically and others more subtly. But it's what this past year has been about, and is an opportunity for those of you who are still maybe coming out of that cocoon, the part of it still blinding your head, and you got to pull that off and let your wings dry and stretch and reach out into that unknown. Because if you think about it, a caterpillar knew exactly where it was. It was on this leaf and on the ground, earthbound, and just constantly consuming all the leaves around it. It was very stable, very simple, very, one purpose: to eat, to consume, consumerism. And when it emerges as a butterfly, it's in a whole different terrain, a different territory. It has wings to soar off of those plants into the unknown, into unknown worlds, into unknown realities. And that can be frightening, or it can be adventuresome, depending upon how much you trust yourself to be different, how much you trust life to be there to support you. Or if you have a belief system that life's out to get you, that life's a bitch and then you die. All the old programming that we've been conditioned from the ego to think that the future is scary, the unknown, to change is scary. I'll just go back to what I've always done. And that's not fair to yourself. And it's certainly a lack of compassion for your future. So 2022, as this year of metamorphosis starts to come to a close, and as 2022 opens, it's like, how do I belong and connect? The year of belonging, the year of connection in this whole new world that is emerging for all of us? How do I relate and belong to myself? That I've changed and I've grown. Am I going to ignore that and deny that? Am I going to go back to the old ways and pretend nothing's changed and just go back to, what I've always done to have fun? Like I've always talked about, and what's so important is one of the prerequisites of every lifetime is to learn to have fun. To learn to have fun. To learn to be the source of fun in your life. That's something that, regardless of all the varied destinies that are out there for every one of us, it's like going to college. You have prerequisites you have to go through before you go into your specialty. Well, one of the prerequisites for every lifetime is to learn to consciously create success and to learn to have fun. And if you think about that, how different would our world be if people were truly enjoying their lives, truly having fun? How different would our world be? It's not an evolved or unspiritual approach. Because what is fun for you when you're 5 years old and what's fun for you when you're 12 years old or 22 or 45 or 68 or 92 changes. It evolves. So a person who is coming out of this cocoon, emerge a different being, you need to question, is this still enjoyable for me? What I've done for the last 20, 30 years, I've never questioned. We're having fun, aren't we? We're getting drunk on a Saturday night and drinking beer and eating pizza. I've been doing that for 35 years and I have a big gut to prove it. But is it really enjoyable? Is it really fun? To change and to upgrade, to look at and to decide that, I'm going to let go of some things that I used to think were fun that no longer serve me. I'm just doing it because it's familiar. Hear that? Because it's easy. It's autopilot, automatic. I don't have to think or feel. I don't have to respond. I just react by doing what the same old. Well, in so many ways, when you move into the world and into the year of belonging and connection, it's like, how do I belong to myself? How do I belong to myself? Because you have changed and you have grown and you have evolved. And it's important to reevaluate not only what brings you joy and fun in your life, to mature it, to let it evolve, to become more, to bring it up to date, not unlike a computer program, right? A software program. And I've used this analogy so many times in all of my classes and working with people. It's like, how often nowadays do we have to upgrade our phone? All of a sudden, a new version of the software is available, upgrade it. Or your computer, like 2 or 3 times a year at least. When was the last time you upgraded your beliefs and your attitude? When was the last time you upgraded your thoughts and your feelings? Well, I haven't thought about that. So I'm still thinking and functioning as an adolescent or a teenager or a young grown-up. But I now have the opportunity to move from being a grown-up into the adult. And that means I need to update my software. I need to update what brings me joy and fun and reevaluate some of the foundational basics. Because as I started off this talk about the foundation, if you're standing on a solid foundation of being empowered, then you've been standing on the verge of greater opportunity, of greater success, of greater love, of greater freedom, of greater truth, and a greater sense of personal peace. However, if you've been standing on a foundation of disempowerment, giving your power away to others, not valuing yourself, martyring yourself, suffering and sacrificing to prove how much you love, all that old conditioning and upbringing, then you are standing on a foundation or standing on the brink of disaster, of dis-ease, of frustration, and of greater pain. The cool thing is, as you have chosen to learn, to grow, to get to know yourself, you can change the foundation. You can step out of and learn how to empower yourself, how to become the empowered self.